Welcome to the Collaborative Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Krause. Our guest today is Moses Divaker. Moses is an aerodynamics engineer and employee number one at Archer Aviation. Moses, welcome to the pod.
Awesome. Thanks, Spencer. Appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate you coming on, buddy. Good to have you here.
Appreciate you having me on here. Yeah.
Moses and I just screwed up the last run of this intro we did, so cracking up over that. But good to be here. I
Yeah.
think it's good enough. I think we can go in and do it.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Cool. So, employee number one at Archer,
Yeah.
obviously a pretty well-known company. How'd you get recruited for that role, and what's the ride been like as you've been
Yeah.
getting into that?
It's been an incredible journey. I mean, we started out essentially very small company. We started actually in my graduate student lab. So that kind of goes into how I got started with Archer as well. So back in 2018, I was actually working for a small drone company in Gainesville at the time, and they had just closed their doors. And I was in grad school, trying to finish grad school. So joined this research lab, and their main thing was building drones, UAVs. But the approach that they took, I thought was really fascinating. So one of the things they did in that lab was they were able to build and fly lots and lots of drones, kind of using like a very quick, like, prototype method, just kind of getting this thing out the door. Let's gain some learnings from building these things and iterate and build the next, class of vehicles based on the learnings that we did. Very empirical. So I saw that, and I was looking at, like, say the market around the time, and I was like, one of the biggest things is, of course, in 2016, Uber Elevate dropped their white paper on air taxis, and it was always my dream to kind of work in this industry and build flying cars, air taxis, whatever you want to call them, eVTOL. There's no, there's still a kind of a transitional term for these kind of vehicles, electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, but I've always wanted to do that. And I saw these small UAVs, these drones, as kind of a stepping stone to doing that. And of course, it's really hard to build a large full scale vehicle. It's very easy to build like these small drones, but essentially it's very similar in terms of its core technology. They're electric, they're stabilized with, flight computers, and they have multiple rotors. They have multiple, like, different things. They can take off vertically, transition to forward flight, and just become like normal airplanes. So it's essentially the same core technology scaled down. So at that point, I was like, hey, my lab, we can do this. We can build lots of these aircraft around. Let's see if there's anyone else that's interested in working together and trying to build this as well. So I went to a conference, AIAA Aviation in Atlanta, Georgia. And that's actually where I met Brett Adcock, one of the co-founders of Archer Aviation. And Brett was out there. He and his partner, Adam, had, they were kind of they were in the process of exiting Vetter. I think they actually just sold the company recently. So that was, they sold it, and they were looking for their next big thing. And, that was, this industry had really attracted the attention of both Brett and Adam. And they were there trying to meet people, trying to meet the best and brightest, and try to recruit them to help get Archer off the ground. So when we met kind of in a hallway, actually. It was super random. I was out there, and I was looking to meet people, and obviously so was Brett. So I just kind of introduced myself. I was like, hey, my name is Moses. What's your name? And he was like, oh, Brett Adcock. And we just started talking. It turned out we had a mutual interest in building these aircraft. So that meeting essentially became it helped actually begin the process of Archer's formally having a relationship with the University of Florida. And at that point, they were, I think, funding a few other small projects here and there. And Brett brought me on as a contractor just to kind of work with him and work with both Brett and Adam, work together, and send him a bunch of designs. And we worked together over the summer, and come August, I think it was actually October, throughout October. So we met in June, and I was working with him, kind of on the side until October. And essentially, the pitch that, what I made there was like, what, we've been working on this for a few months here. We've got, a bunch of designs. Let's go see if we can build these things. And I've got my lab here, and let's just try to make this dream become a reality. And both Brad and Adam, they decided to used some, of course, their own personal funding, and they founded Archer, and they funded our lab. And what we did with that funding is we built a bunch of early prototype aircraft, and that's essentially when Archer got started. It was October of 2018. Funded building aircraft off of Archer Road in Gainesville, Florida, and those aircraft eventually became bigger. We learned a lot from those aircraft. There were a lot of deficiencies in the design that, through our flight testing, because we were rapidly iterating. We're like, okay, these things work, these things don't work. And then eventually, Brett and Adam were able to convince other investors to join on. Mark Laurie joined on. They were able to raise a bunch of money, and we were able to go take this from a very early stage, a bunch of grad students building these things, to having some of the best folks in the industry helping us out. And of course, we took all the learnings that we had from the University of Florida into our next generation of aircraft that we've built, and we're still learning today. We've built multiple full-scale aircraft. We've had makers flying as full-scale aircraft. Have Midnight, our non-certified Midnight's also flying right now. We're learning quite a bit of it, quite a bit from that to take to our certified product. So it's kind of the same concept, similar concept. Design, we build, we fly, we learn data, get some FAA data, and kind of iterate and build the next generation. So it all started in 2018 at the University of Florida.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are some of the kind of similarities and dissimilarities between like the eVTOLs and, I don't know, helicopter, for instance?
That's a great question. So eVTOL and helicopters. So traditionally, the way that helicopters operate is they're really loud, they're really noisy, and a lot of those noise sources come from the fact that there's when we fly our aircraft, we are wing borne, right? We are not generating lift with the rotors. We're using just passive, the wings are generating lift, right? That itself is a huge thing. So we are able to not just carry the weight of the aircraft, but we're able to offload that to the helicopter. So to offload that to the wings, that will allow us to shut down a lot of our rotors. And when we shut down our rotors, it's going to be quieter. That's the first thing. Second thing is we are fully electric. And because we're fully electric, that also eliminates a lot of overhead in terms of maintenance cost. So for example, like you've got a gas turbine engine or a piston engine, and there's so many moving parts in these things. It's unbelievable. But an electric motor, an electric engine really, really simplifies that thing. We've just got a bunch of magnets, spinning around. And of course we have gearboxes on ours, but it's much, much simpler than, say, a traditional gas turbine or a reciprocating engine would be on a helicopter. So you've got the noise. It's going to be quieter. You've got the simplicity from the motor, from the engineering standpoint. And lastly, it is also electric, which is a huge benefit in terms of like when we think about what the future world we want to build in. Of course, there's a big push right now to reduce emissions. And of course, our aircraft is going to be zero emissions. So that's going to be a huge thing, I think, for a cleaner future where we're not, polluting the skies with, aircraft that are spewing, different, all kinds of exhaust chemicals, whatever. So I think it's overall, these things are what sets us apart from helicopters. And, I think we're obviously,
So it's a totally different vehicle.
Totally different vehicle, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and I didn't really think about this coming in, but it's effectively a transformer between, a rotorcraft and a plane. And then at the same time, you've also got the benefit of being electric, which you could electrify a helicopter. I'm sure it's been done before, even though I don't really know. But you still wouldn't get that benefit of being able to use the wing lift that you get from,
Yes.
This eVTOL.
Exactly. And that really is a huge benefit. It allows us to, like I said, we can fly, once things get better in terms of battery energy storage, we think that we should, we're going to be the superior aircraft. And it's, the VTOL paradigm is also primarily the reason why you see the V-22 Osprey, for example, now becoming one of the most, popular, aircraft in the armed forces inventory. So it's just, I think it's a much, it can do both missions, to both a helicopter and an airplane, albeit, we can't hover as long as a helicopter could, but we can certainly fly farther and faster than a helicopter would. And we can't fly as far as an airplane would, but we can take off and land without having a runway. So it's, I think it's a pretty good sweet spot to be in.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Interestingly enough, is we see that same paradigm in the aviation, in the bird world, actually. So you have, obviously it's another creature that gets in the air, and on one end of the spectrum, you have creatures like the hummingbird, which are like really good at hovering, but
Helicopter.
yeah, exactly, like a helicopter, exactly. And the other end of the spectrum, you have this bird like the wandering albatross. The wandering albatross like requires like essentially like a runway to take
Oh,
off.
I
Like
didn't
it
know
needs
that.
to
That's
like,
really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it's crazy. These things can run. They run down the road, and then they flap their wings and they like get in the air. And of course, the albatross can fly over the world, no problem. It's got great efficiency. Hummingbirds, they burn a lot of energy doing what they're doing, right? But in the middle, you see birds that kind of had a mixture of both. And one of my favorites is actually the osprey. So the osprey is one of these larger birds. It can hover in place, like albatrosses, as far as I know, cannot hover, but an osprey can hover. And it can take off, and it can, of course, fly like longer ranges and a little bit more efficiently than, say, a hummingbird would. So you kind of see this spectrum also in nature. So yeah, and we're just essentially doing the same here with our UVTOL. So
Did you know that Collaborative with Spencer Krause now has a merch store? Please go to cwskmerch.com for the latest in CWSK styles. You can get a hoodie, like the one I'm wearing, t-shirts, hell, we even have whiskey glasses. Everything in the store has custom art that our team worked really, really hard on, so go ahead and show your support for them, me, and the rest of the CWSK team by going to cwskmerch.com today. Better yet, support yourself and use discount code PODCAST10, all one word, all uppercase, for 10% off your entire order. Thanks for your support and enjoy the rest of the show. Collaborative with Spencer Krause is sponsored by SKA Robotics. If you're in the market for elite field robotics expertise, please consider hiring SKA Robotics. They sponsor this podcast and solve some of the toughest engineering problems in the world. SKA Robotics can be found at skarobotics.com.
yeah, there's definitely, like, if you type in, I think, albatross takeoff runway or something like that on YouTube, you'll see like this video from, I don't know, it's like 15 years old, but it's basically a bunch of albatrosses like lining up on a like essentially like a runway, and they're like flapping their wings and they're like running and trying to get in the air. So
Oh, that's
it's kind of
awesome.
funny.
And so
Yeah.
they've taken turns, like they're social.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
kind of
awesome.
funny.
I'll have to find that. Especially I started to work on my private pilot's license, and
Oh,
so I feel
really?
like I pay a little more attention when I'm at the airport now. So that's
Oh, no way. How
uh,
far along into your private pilot's license are you?
not that far. I'm only, to be honest, about like 8 flight hours in, I think, at this point. So
Okay, nice. So still haven't soloed yet?
still haven't soloed yet. Have you done
Okay,
yours?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I have my private and my instrument. So
Oh, sweet.
yeah, I originally got it. So a little background about myself. So I was also in the Air Force Reserve for like, I don't know, like 10 years or so, like a decade.
Oh, cool.
And that was while I was in grad school. Essentially I was, you know, I love this country, and I love airplanes, and the two things come together real nicely in the Air Force. So which is really, so basically I was enlisted. I used to load and unload aircraft. I was what they call air transportation specialist. So I drove forklifts, did like the load plans and stuff like that. But originally I wanted to gain my commission and actually fly as a reserve pilot. So got my pilot's license, got my instrument rating, building the time, building the hours. And then right while I was get ready to apply for like a commissioning slot, like Archer essentially like took off. So I was like, I had to make a choice there, what I wanted to do with my life. And well, I'm here, and I'm really proud of my, service in the country. And, I'm glad that's always going to be a part of my story. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, originally got my pilot's license to try to fly for the Air Force, but just now, but now instead I just fly for fun, so I enjoy it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I never met anyone in the Air Force I didn't like. Like I feel like
Yeah,
it's a decent
it's
group
a
of
good
folks.
branch.
Yeah, for sure.
Some would say it's the best branch. So
I wonder who would say that.
yeah, exactly.
The guy I'm having dinner with after this was active duty in the Army for 20 years, so I'll tell him you said that when I see him.
Yeah, exactly. I remember actually during training one time. So we were actually at an army post. It was Fort Lee in Virginia, and one of the things that I will just never forget. So like it was raining. It was like whatever. It was like really crazy. And of course, at the end of the day, like all of us Air Force guys, we're all in like our dorms or like like they're basically like it's like a college dorm. It's like pretty nice. And we're all like warm. We're just, having a good time there. And then we look outside the window and we see like a bunch of like these army guys, like literally their instructors are forcing them to go out and do a bunch of push-ups and jumping jacks and all this PT in the rain, like the cold rain. I was
Oh,
like, oh
geez.
man. Yeah, like here
Quite
we
a bit of
are, just like all
contrast.
warm. Exactly. It's like, okay, this is pretty good life here. So
No, I know which job I'd rather be doing. Plus, your machines are cooler. So
yeah, exactly. It was awesome.
yeah,
It was good times for sure.
yeah. And I was having dinner with a buddy of mine in the Air Force like 2 nights ago. Not to be biased, so got to be
Yeah,
friends with
of
everyone.
course. Yeah, of course. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, getting your pilot's license is definitely a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it in the end. It's definitely worth it, as I say, seeing the world from a bird's eye view. So
Yeah, no, it's really lovely. I've been really enjoying just the training and obviously the feeling of flying is something else. I mean, the first time I went up, it was actually during one of these podcasts. I had a guy on, Alex Fossil, and he told me he had his pilot's license, and I was just like, I've always wanted to do that. And he was like, well, why don't you come up with me on Saturday?
that's awesome. What's really interesting actually here is the pilot training pipeline for eVTOL. So one of the things, so this is not Archer, this is not us, but others in the industry. So the industry is kind of like become essentially there are two like main pillars in the eVTOL industry, right? The first is what we're building, air taxis, and the second is what you're seeing actually a lot of companies in this space is these personal eVTOL aircraft actually that are smaller than what the FAA would classify them as an ultralight. And interesting thing about an ultralight is that you don't need a pilot's license to fly that. So there's a company out in California. They're called Pivotal. They used to be known as Opener, I believe, or Black Fly. And they're building a vehicle right now. I think they're taking pre-orders, or I think maybe you can buy them. But essentially, you can learn how to fly this vehicle without having any experience. They'll just take you and they'll show you how to fly this aircraft, and you can go out and fly over the countryside. And there's a really good article actually in the New Yorker about this. Happened, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or something like that. But this guy was like flying around and he was talking about like seeing all the cows on the ground and stuff like that. So
That's
which
awesome.
is which is like pretty incredible. And like to do that with like almost no
Want to be
training.
able to fly low enough also to be able to see cows like clearly. I mean, the guy must have been, like
Yeah.
he can't have been that high up at that point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's actually a company in Europe. They're building another personal eVTOL. It's called Jetson One, and in their videos, it's kind of crazy. Actually, you see them flying through forests and
Wait, like in
like
between trees?
dunes. Yeah, in between
That's
trees. Yeah,
insane.
it
I would
is
be
kind of
terrified.
crazy. It is terrifying, but hey, I mean, it's pretty amazing that again, you don't need a pilot's license to do a lot of this stuff. So
Is
I
the
think it's gonna.
training like curve like easy enough that you can just figure it out pretty quickly? I wonder on something like that.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, one of the things we've noticed actually in our simulator, in our Archer simulator, is that we have people that have had no training and just people off the street, and you can just like put them in our aircraft and they can fly it. And the reason why is it's designed in such a way that our flight computer, is always in the loop, stabilizing the aircraft, always calculating the most optimal like conditions for it to fly in, and it really makes the job a lot easier to do. In fact, we've gotten rid of a lot of our traditional flight controls. In fact, we have two joysticks on the side of our aircraft. We call them inceptors, and it's really, it simplifies how you fly and interact with these vehicles compared to the traditional yoke and rudder pedals and joystick and throttle, quadrant, and stuff like that. Our pedals, for example, don't really do much. They're not like traditional rudder pedals.
What are they there
It's
for?
all
Like, what do they control?
uh, on the ground brakes. That's pretty
Oh,
much
that's
it.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Is it
our
similar
aircraft's
to like
much
an actual
simpler.
rudder where you have to do that for brakes?
No, yeah, we don't. Yep, that's exactly it. So they're just brakes. And all of our controls are in our two inceptors,
So
and
if
you can
you're,
actually,
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
yeah, I was gonna say, if you have the new Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, you can go and try flying our aircraft in there. Midnight's in there, and just get an Xbox controller, and you can map the two like little joysticks, or whatever, to to that, and you can go fly it. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
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 I
and
do not have Flight Sim 2024, but now I kind of want to get it since you've told me about that.
Many hours later.
yeah. The Jetson aircraft is in there too. The little personal drone thing, the personal eVTOL, so you can go fly around wherever you want as well,
Between
and kind of
trees.
between trees. Exactly, exactly. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
hopefully, while you get your pilot's license in maybe a few short years, those other products are going to come to market, and maybe you might future pilots might not need to get their pilot's license.
I'm sure I'm
So
not going to understand the flight controls from a conversation, but just to get a general idea, like, are the inceptors like single degree of freedom each, or like, are they more joysticks, or like, how do they work exactly? Like, what do
yeah,
they affect on the
yeah,
plane, or is that the aircraft?
absolutely. Yeah, so it all depends on the regime of flight it's in, right? So if the aircraft is so it's we've designed our flight controls to be similar to like the Harrier or the F-35, or you have like a unified flight controls, and you have your throttle, essentially makes you go forward and backwards, but it's not really a throttle. It has like a center detent. You can see this as well in the Microsoft Flight Simulator game. And of course, you have on the other side, you can make the airplane go, bank left and right. But what the actual maneuvers are, it kind of blends. We blend the hover when the aircraft is flying around like a helicopter, and to when it becomes like an airplane, with analogies where when you're in hover, you can like rotate around a lot easier, you can like twist the aircraft, versus when you're in an airplane, you're say using your rudder pedals, right? Or you've got other sorts of like side slip, you want to try to to do. So we kind of do a smooth blending between hover and when it's flying around like a helicopter, and like an airplane mode, and the airplane modes. And we do that in such a way that it's easy for any pilot. Of course, you got to have, for us, your pilot's license to fly either airplane or helicopter. And then, of course, it should be easy for them to be able to be trained to get their powered lift rating for a vehicle of our class. But for someone off the street, I'm sure that a lot of these other smaller companies are probably adopting very similar methods as well. So, but yeah, they're just normal joysticks. So essentially,
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
very easy to fly.
Yeah, I kind of want to try it now in Microsoft Flight Sim. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
obviously want to try it in real life, but that seems like a bigger lift.
yeah. The Joby aircraft is on there too, actually. So, and Joby, they have more of a. I'm not an expert in their design, but at least in Microsoft Flight Sim, they do have like a throttle essentially, on the left, and a joystick on the right. So, which is similar concept of unified flight controls, but we've taken a different approach to how we have our inceptors essentially designed. So
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, like, I guess the fact that we're early enough in eVTOLs that there's not like a single way to fly them all,
mhm.
and I mean, I guess that's true of like more mature aircraft as well. Like, there's just what makes the most
Yeah,
amount of sense to the designers.
absolutely. You see this as well in the architecture of these aircraft as well. So, for example, there are eVTOLs that are purely rotor, like helicopter like similar, like they don't have any wings, right? So companies like Volocopter or Jetson, for example, they don't have any wings. They're just pure lift rotors, or EHang, which is a Chinese company, right? And you have Joby, where all their rotors or all their propellers are all tilting. They're all six of them are moving, and we kind of have a hybrid between, like, some of ours are tilting and some of ours aren't. So there is no consensus even on aircraft architecture right now, as to like what that is. And of course, there are positives and negatives to all of them. But yeah, it's really it's still very much, we'll have to see kind of how all these things develop over time, and kind of what the trade-offs are for that. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, that'll be interesting to see kind of like, 50 years from now, what's going to be the standard. Or are you going to see like divergence and, a few different paths of different classes of eVTOL?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Boeing's like, a Boeing and an Airbus, just on first glance, they look very similar, right? You got a big tube, wings, two engines, great, very similar architecture. But of course, the detail is all in like the performance differences are all in the details, really. So how much more drag can you get rid of, and the way you shape the wings, or like this little part on the aircraft, the cowling, for example, things like that. All of these things play a difference at that point in a more mature industry.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So
So,
yeah, well, go ahead.
after you.
No, no, yeah. So I was gonna say, so I just have to see how things shake out. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say, what point in your life did you know you wanted to go into aerospace?
That's a great question. So I have always dreamed of what this world would look like to try to build these type of vehicles. Just the idea of, you know, how do you like, how do you get, like, I've always dreamed of the future where anyone can fly whenever they wanted, on demand. Like if you want to go flying today, or if you want to go fly across the city or whatever, fly across the town or country, whatever, you can just do that. Um, and that's always been like one of my motivations. So like figuring out how to do that. But I was in love with aviation since I was like, even before I can remember. So the earliest memories that I have is like, I remember playing Flight Simulator actually with my dad. Like I was sitting on his lap and I was like trying to land an airplane. I couldn't do it very well. That's, I mean, since I was a young kid, and after school, when I grew up in the Caribbean, and while after school, most days after school, I used to go to the airport and just like hang out there by the airport fence. And this is a small airport in the Caribbean, of course, so you can see people like coming in, on and off. So I used to chat with the pilots, and I got to know the air traffic controllers. So I got invited to the tower a bunch of times, and
Oh, cool.
even like go to the ramp. And yeah, it was just like I was just in love with aviation, So I could do I did a lot that I could just kind of keep me around. And of course, as a kid, I didn't know how to fly an airplane, but I did really get into Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I made a bunch of add-ons and stuff like that. And so, just try to build the world that I was like living in, essentially, so I can like dream about just like flying around. So this was in the 90s, early 2000s. There weren't a lot of like, Caribbean flight simming wasn't really a big thing. So, I was like, you know what, if it's not here, someone's got to do it. Right. So let me go ahead and just start building out these, the different aircraft or whatever, the airports and stuff like that. So since as far as I can possibly remember, I've been in love with aviation. So
That's awesome. I was about 12 when I built my first robot. So
yeah, there it is. That's awesome.
No, it's palpable. I mean, hearing you talk, it's obvious that it's like a lifelong passion. So
yeah, yeah. And we're really excited. Hopefully, this year, 2025 and your 2026, we can really, get this thing off the ground, with people, passengers flying, and it's gonna be really great. So
yeah, that's awesome. So I guess extracurricularly, what are you into outside of work?
yeah, it's a great question. So obviously, Archer Aviation, San Jose, California, right? We were originally in Palo Alto, then we grew out of that and moved to San Jose. So California is the Golden State. So it's amazing for how much you can do outside of like the work. One of the things about Silicon Valley is that everyone works really hard, and of course, everyone works really hard at Archer as well. So during the week, we're working really hard, we're heads down, grinding. But when the weekend hits, it's like that is the time when I just like love that. So there is so much to do there. I mean, it's
Oh yeah.
unbelievable. So like, for the first time in my life, so I grew up in mostly tropical climate, obviously the Caribbean, Florida. So the first time in my life, I was actually able to do like a winter activity, winter sport, and like a summer sport, which was like incredible. So in the winters, like I went skiing like every weekend to Lake Tahoe, which is like incredible. Of course, Palisades, and there's a bunch of other ski resorts, Alpine Meadows, and of course the Epic Pass resorts, Heavenly, North Star. They're incredible. And in the summer, being in the Bay, you're right next to the Santa Cruz Mountains, and there's incredible mountain biking trails out there. I mean, you can really kind of bike all summer long, or all year round, but it does kind of get cold and like wet, I guess, in the winter. But yeah, I mean, mountain biking. I picked up kite surfing as well,
Oh,
or
cool.
kiting, kiteboarding. Yeah, it's all the rage actually out there, and it's kind of funny. My old advisor, my PhD advisor at UF, he was a big windsurfer. So he used to actually windsurf in the same spots that now it's been taken over by kiting, which is like kind of cool. So I've been able to just kind of talk with him about that. So it's been really, really neat. So yeah, just adventure sports. But right now I'm back in Florida, just for the time being. So my wife is in graduate school here, and of course, I think it's really important to kind of be together. So while I'm here in Florida, try to do some mountain biking. So
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. What about you? Do you have any stuff you do on the side, or
Yeah,
what
I
do you do
really
for
like to
fun?
cook a lot. I mean, the pilot's license, I guess, is one thing. Although I've been, to be honest, neglecting it a bit lately.
Yeah,
So not proud of it. Actually, a bit ashamed of it, but it is what it is.
yeah,
Um, I like travel. So for New Year's, I went to Europe. Did a little bit of time in the UK and then also in Belgium. So that was
nice.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah, that's. What do you do when you're traveling? Do you like to go to restaurants or the cultural stuff, or?
that's a great question. So, I mean, in my day-to-day life, my life is like highly scheduled and regimented. I mean, some days I'll have like 17 meetings, and I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, it's just a lot of relationship management. It's kind of my job at this point.
Yeah,
And so, just, I'll set all my alarms before I go to bed. I have 5-minute warnings for anything I do remotely. And then if I need to be in person, I try to give myself ample time to get there. So it's a lot of like, beep, beep, beep. Okay, got to do this. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, got to do that. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, got to do
yeah,
this. So when I go on vacation, which is rare, I mean, I maybe like take a good one like every year and a half, and then I'll try to get like a few weekends in between. But I try to do the opposite. So when I set this up, I only booked. I was going to be gone for a week and a half, but I only booked 4 days of lodging just to kind of screw myself and force myself to, figure out where I was going to stay after
nice.
that.
I
And
love that. Yeah,
thanks. So,
yeah,
for me, it's a lot of it's like self discovery. So you figure out an area, you get to know people, and then sort of leapfrog to the next thing off of what you learned from that. So
that's
I
incredible.
thanks. So it's I don't know. I mean, like sometimes that involves cultural things. Like going to Oxford was really neat, and like there were some really good museums there. I mean, in London, I kind of just took in the nightlife, and a lot more spontaneous.
Hmm.
Didn't make it to Big Ben or Buckingham Palace, unfortunately, but they'll be there next time, I think.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
and then just Brighton. The beach there was really interesting. The pier kind of reminded me a little bit of Santa Monica in Southern
Yeah,
California, if you've ever been there.
yeah, yeah,
But instead of sand, it was rocks on the English
yeah. That's
Channel. So
so
that was kind of
interesting.
yeah, it was really neat. And when you walked like behind you, there'd be kind of like indents in the rocks, but you've been walking as if it was sand, but
Yeah,
just much larger granules. And similar angle of repose. I don't know. I thought it was just I don't know where I heard this, but somewhere it was either a song or somebody talking or a poem. I can't remember, but it was like when you stand at the edge of the beach, you get this feeling of like what it's like to be truly alone. And I don't know. I thought that
yeah.
was kind of
That's
interesting.
that is pretty amazing. And what is really cool about those kind of experiences as well is that you're really getting the chance to see what it's like almost have a taste of what it's like to like live there a little bit. And I think that sometimes you just miss that when you're traveling, you're doing all the touristy things, and it's cool that you got to do that. And the second thing is as well, what I think about all the time, I feel like, is like, how does this, like, okay, so you're experiencing Brighton Beach and you're experiencing these pebbles. Like, how many other people have come before you and have done the same thing? And like,
easily millions.
yeah, millions, and exactly throughout time. And it's just like, it's cool to be able to like experience that like shared, experience with like, many people, like humanity. So it's cool to do that. So it's
completely agree. And that exact thought crossed my mind when I was there. It's like, what was this like in, like the 1940s, when there was a war on? Probably a little different, but not all that different at the same time.
Yeah.
What about before that? Well, it was, it was around.
Yeah.
Like there were people there, and I think like 1000 AD and probably before.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm showing my lack of knowledge of history of the area.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that I actually think about that all the time. So I always think about like you mentioned cooking as well. So one of the hobbies that I'm also really into is actually making like historical recipes.
Oh, cool.
And then so like figuring out, so the way that I see it, right? We can travel the world, we can travel to other places, right? But we can't really, unfortunately, we can travel through space, but we cannot travel through time. Hopefully maybe one day humanity can figure it out, but I
don't think we're anywhere close.
Exactly. But one of the ways we experience different spaces, different places of the world is through cuisine. So I figured one way we can experience different times is also through cuisine. So, finding recipes of what people ate like 200, 300, 400 years ago.
That's awesome.
And kind of having a slice of that, or, eating that. And it's just really cool. Flavors are just really different. Spices obviously are different. It makes you really feel blessed to be living in this era, to be honest with you. That's the biggest takeaway that I've gotten out of it.
Moses, how do you access that information? Like, is it just like finding cookbooks from a while ago, or like people's diaries, or how do you figure out what to make?
That's a great question. So there's a pretty big community of these historical cuisine people, honestly. If you just like go on the internet and you just find, like, you can just go to Google, honestly, and just type in like historical cuisine. There's a really good cookbook. It's a YouTuber. His name is Max Miller, Tasting History. He has a big YouTube channel, pretty big following. He's taken a lot of these recipes from the original sources, like, these old 18th century cookbooks, and kind of has taken them and made them again. And of course, you can go back to the source as well. Like, a lot of these things are open source, open domain, public domain, right? So a lot of it's on the internet. Honestly, you just parse it through ChatGPT and update the recipe, and you can do it. A lot of YouTubers, a lot of folks on Reddit that have taken these things. I think I got a gingerbread recipe from the 1400s or something like that I found on Reddit or whatever, and then I remade it, and I was like, that was pretty cool.
What was the difference between like a gingerbread from the 1400s and like one you might purchase at a grocery store in like 2025?
The spices are really different. So the gingerbread had a lot of like pepper in there, which is really interesting.
Oh, that isn't like black pepper?
Black pepper, exactly. So if you think about it, right, like, this is back in the day, like, if
what
you
was the
had,
country of origin? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I think it was England. It was
okay,
English,
cool.
I believe. So I think it was English. So
when they would have had access to sugar at that point because of,
So interestingly enough, is it called for using honey.
Oh, that isn't okay.
So, and of course, this is a food meant for kings at this point, because like, you got to harvest honey, you got all these like random spices, in there. So it was very, very interesting. It didn't taste much like a modern gingerbread would taste like. It was made from like stale bread, for example. I used to use breadcrumbs, but it's kind of got the similar flavor. You take honey, you boil honey, you add like tons of breadcrumbs, you add the ginger and the pepper, and you let that cool. And yeah, and then you have your gingerbread. It's more of like a ginger chew.
Yeah, I can imagine there's no way for it to rise at that point with that recipe.
Exactly. But it's gingerbread. It's got ginger. It's got bread in there. So it's what we consider that. So yeah,
I got a recipe. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was gonna say I got one from a bartender a while ago for a ginger simple syrup, and
nice.
The way that they made it, which I really liked, was like, how like sometimes, like, normally when you make simple syrup, you'll boil down sugar and like maybe some other ingredients,
Mm-hmm.
and equal parts sugar and water, right? That's like the base recipe.
Yep.
So this one was you take sugar and you stick it in a blender with equal parts water,
Oh,
and you
interesting.
never cook it. And what I found when I made that recipe is that it resulted in a much spicier flavor because you didn't end up doing that thing where the ginger mellows out when you cook it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of good. And then when you make that, there's a byproduct in that you have to run it through a strainer to get all the pulp out of the ginger,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the leftover pulp has a lot of sugar and ginger in it. So if you cook that on a silicone mat or like in a pan, you can make like a ginger chew.
Oh,
And it's
no
just
way.
yeah, it's
Oh,
just
that's
ginger pulp and
fascinating.
sugar, and it's very
Yeah.
good. And so when you describe that recipe, that's like
Yeah.
kind of my head went to that.
I mean, if there's one thing I love about humanity is that if it's a good idea, others were gonna always try to do the same thing. So,
Yeah, or something that kind of resembles it. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. I like that cooking, and it's just cool to be able to think about, how this, how we can, what our ancestors lived like, and also like, kind of meta, like how do we fit into the greater arc of, human history and human time. So it's something that, just always
I mean,
think about.
the
So
crazy thing is, like, I would imagine just going back into historical cuisine because this, so I didn't know this was a thing. This is really fascinating to me.
yeah,
But I would imagine that, like, when certain ingredients are referenced in historical recipes, they don't necessarily mean the same thing that they would mean now. So, like, mainly because, like, you'll have, like, plants that have died off and, like, don't exist anymore, or, like, maybe just a different vernacular, or, like, maybe there's, like, a different breed of, like, I don't know, corn was, like, a New World crop, I think. And so it
yeah.
wouldn't have even existed, but maybe if somebody mentioned it, they meant something else. Like, I'm just speculating here.
Yeah, for sure. So, I've never made it, but the making garum, which is like an ancient Roman, item, it's pretty challenging to make, and I think basically, I think there are some ingredients that are hard to get, hard to come by. There's like modern versions of garum, but they're very different. They're different in to some extent. They're different, but it's a challenging process. It's not easy. Another one I remember looking at, this recipe called for mace. So mace is the shell of the nutmeg, essentially,
Right.
and that's also kind of hard to find. I feel like I'm not really it's hard to just find them at grocery stores and whatnot. So it's just like sometimes you just got to make like thoughtful, substitutions. The most recent recipe that I made was, thanks to Max Miller and his tasting history, basically is this pumpkin pie, right? Pumpkin pie is around Thanksgiving, and it's like an early pumpkin pie. But the recipe called for basically just like herbs. It doesn't specify what those herbs are.
Just
So,
whatever you think feels right.
exactly. So,
I mean, to be honest, like we have the luxury of being able to access like pretty much everything in the world through air freight and refrigeration and
yep.
freezing and so I mean we really have it pretty good in that regard. Like I don't think any other point in history you had access to the same range of stuff that we can get now, like and just in
Oh,
one locale.
100%. Yeah, we are living in such an incredible era of like history of like being able to enjoy good food. The one thing that I've seen all throughout like my cooking adventures throughout time is that man, food tastes so much better in the modern era. It's based, cooking techniques are different, ingredients are better. Like one example is like apple pie recipe that I made had like cloves in it. I don't really think cloves like really go well in an apple pie in my opinion. So,
But it must have
it's
been what
like
they had around, like within
exactly.
arm's reach, because you couldn't
Yeah.
go more than 5 miles in any direction, or you just lived there after that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, I'm just so glad. Food tastes so much better. But you should try it out actually if you're curious. Yeah,
Oh,
definitely
I
check out.
definitely am.
Yeah.
So,
So it's really, really fascinating. I really enjoy that. So
yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to check that out. I mean, I do love to cook. If I didn't go into robotics, I mean, the other career path I considered was being a chef, and so
really,
yeah, like in my 20s before I realized how much more money I'd make in this field, and I both were passions of mine. Like I really love to cook, and I also really love building robots and
yeah,
designing them and
yeah.
figuring out
I,
those
so, I,
puzzles.
I would love to hear more about your robots. You say the first one you built when was 12 years old.
Yeah, that was basic. So it was well, I mean I was 12, but like
Yeah.
it was what's called a beam robot. So it stands for it's a branch of robotics that was pioneered by this Canadian guy named Mark Tilden, and
Okay.
it was like taking apart old VCRs and cannibalizing the motors, and then
Oh wow.
using simple circuits and like freeform soldering ICs and other components, like folding the legs down and like putting a resistor across pins like 1 and 4, and then like spinning it the other way and like sticking a cap over here. And so that one that I made was it used 2 AA batteries and a little tap in the middle, and then there were drive motors, and I'm trying to remember exactly how it was hooked up, but like basically what it did is it would reverse the voltage to the motors by like giving them 1.5 volts from like different batteries in order to reverse a motor that was adjacent to a whisker that was on its side. It's like if you bump it would be the opposite side. So if you bump like this whisker against the wall, this motor would reverse to get you away from it. And
That's incredible.
yeah, though I mean it was very rudimentary, like it was just kind of jerking around, but it was a version of that was the first one I made. I made an Instructable that got like 20,000 hits from it like years later, called The World's Most Simple Robot.
Wow.
I haven't checked it. It might be up higher by now. I think it was like 15 or 16, but I checked it like 4 years ago, so it's got to be up to 20 by now.
That's awesome. That's really cool, though. I mean, that's amazing that your design is still available today. So like anyone
It
can
wasn't
go
my
ahead and do
design.
that.
I stole it off Mark Tilden.
Yeah, of course. But
Um,
that's still pretty amazing. I'd love to see that. That's really cool that you're able to do that at 12. And of course, since then you've built far more sophisticated robots.
oh yeah, of course.
So
Robots that work
yeah.
in operating rooms and in construction and mining and power and all sorts of different environments.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's cool to be able to like look back and just think about that. One of the stories that I love is Henry Ford. The Ford clearly changed the world, right? His the first vehicle that he actually made, I think he was in his early 30s at the time. This is the Ford quadricycle.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
very simple car, very simple. I mean, quadricycle is like a bicycle almost.
It's like two bicycles like welded
Yeah,
together is what I'm picturing.
yeah, it was very, very simple. And then, of course, eventually he built a lot more cars. And what I thought was also really interesting is he also started that when he was, in his 30s. Got a later start in life, and was a tinkerer, obviously beforehand, doing a lot of like small stuff here and there. But yeah, it took him a while to eventually go from Model A, B, C all the way down to the Model T. So
Yeah, that's
it's
awesome.
pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like tinkerer is an interesting term because it gets this negative, kind of connotation, I think, in the professional world, which it doesn't really enjoy or doesn't really deserve. Because, like, I think any of us that are passionate about what we do, definitely started there. And,
Yeah,
you develop rigor over time, through practice and experience and
definitely.
training and all that stuff. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, the way you get the passion is through tinkering. I mean,
I agree. Yeah. You got to start somewhere, I mean, you've got to like there's you've got to. So one of the things that I've learned is that, building products is really tough, right? And you've got to be able to power through the times when things don't work out the way you're expecting it to, right? And I think a lot of that is your passion. You've got to like really care about what you're doing, and I think that is what will get you through the times when things aren't working or whatever. So yeah, I think, and that passion is going to come out. And of course, if you're messing around with things when you're younger, or even if you have side projects today, it's the same thing. You really care a lot about
just
what you're
obsessing
doing.
about getting that gingerbread recipe right.
Exactly. It's exactly right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And now I really want to try historical cuisine. I mean, obviously, you know a ton about aeronautical engineering and about, like different kinds of aircraft. So, yeah, I don't know. One of the things about this podcast that's kind of fun is it's pretty tangential, and I like to just kind of see where it goes. But at the same time, I mean, we can definitely kind of rein it in and talk a little more about aerospace. So, what are some of the what I always thought was interesting about that discipline? I mean, I guess robotics is even younger, but the fact that, like the Wright brothers' first flight was in the early 1900s, and then like 50, 60 years later, we were like sending up spacecraft and like getting ready to go to the moon.
Yep.
And so, and then going to the moon. And so like that always boggled my mind, like how fast we went from, like basically a motorcycle with wings to, again, like, travel between different planetoids.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you've seen, like just through like historical aviation and just different, aircraft and spacecraft over the years that have kind of captured, your interest? And like, what are you a fan of? I mean, you mentioned the V-22 Osprey.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's Midnight, but like, what else?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I think about the aircraft that have really like changed the game. So, there's the de Havilland Comet. So the
I'm not
Comet
familiar with that.
was okay, so the de Havilland Comet was the first jet passenger aircraft, I should say rather. So that airplane really, really pushed the frontier. So back in, well, and of course the 707 was right after that, the Boeing 707. But that aircraft ushered in the jet age, right? So before that, people were flying around these prop planes. It used to take like, I don't know, 17 or 15 hours, like a DC-6, DC-4 to cross the Atlantic Ocean. It took forever, right? And then planes were really loud, really noisy, and it just took a long time. And of course, you have the very first jet aircraft, the de Havilland Comet, that brought us into the jet age, where you essentially take that, say, 15-hour, 17-hour flight, whatever, and you cut that down by like 5-6 hours and do it in like 10 hours or so. The de Havilland Comet didn't have the range to do that, but shortly thereafter, of course, the Boeing 707 came into play, and of course, 707, crossed the Atlantic Ocean back and forth. The Douglas DC-8 as well. So, what I think is really interesting about those aircraft, right?
It's not what I would have thought you would have named as passenger aircraft.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what really made those special, actually, is their propulsion. Their propulsion is what really changed everything. And I think we're seeing the same thing right now with eVTOL. So we are now there's a marked difference between reciprocating engines and jet engines. And now I believe there's going to be a marked difference between jet engines and other reciprocating engines still around today, and electric aircraft. So electric aircraft are obviously much cleaner, much cheaper, hopefully cheaper to operate, and just overall better. And in the same way that, jet engines brought people across the Atlantic much faster and kind of opened up aviation to like far off destinations, I believe that the electrification of aviation is going to open up new frontiers in the democratization of this field, where instead of paying like, I don't know, $200 an hour for getting your like to get your pilot's license,
that's
whatever,
not what it costs.
Yeah, it should be hopefully a lot cheaper once you have, say, electric fixed-wing aircraft. Now, these are not eVTOLs, but we're in the same kind of industry, electric aviation. But hopefully, it should be a lot cheaper. So, I see the past, and that really gets me excited about the future in terms of aviation as well. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, of course, there's some other really great ones too, as well. But the early pioneers. But yeah, it's been. But yeah, I'm excited about that. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, for me, I think I've always been, like, just growing up, a huge fan of some of the military aircraft over the years, and just from what people were able to accomplish with the technology at the time that they did it. Like, I mean, the SR-71 Blackbird, for instance, I think every young engineer becomes a fan of aerospace or otherwise. Like, oh, holy crap, look at that. I mean,
yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I recently did a trip to DC with my stepdaughter and my girlfriend, and we went to the Air and Space Museum, and then I'm probably going to mispronounce it, but like the other one, the Udvar-Hazy.
Yeah, the Udvar-Hazy, yeah.
Udvar-Hazy, thanks.
Yeah.
And that was just such a treat to see, all those different like planes from different points in history. One of them being the DC-7 that we looked at.
Yeah, exactly. Those are great aircraft, for sure. I mean,
the 707.
Yeah, I mean, all those aircraft are all there. One of my favorite things is the Milestones of Flight exhibit, which is in the main part of the Smithsonian Museum of Flight. It's in DC, the National Mall area, but you go in there and you see all the aircraft and spacecraft that have like changed the game. So you'll see like I think the Apollo 11 command module is there, or at least the capsule is
Oh,
there.
that's cool.
You're gonna see like the Bell X-1, the first aircraft to break the sound barrier.
I was so sad
barrier.
because where that's kept and the Apollo capsule is kept is currently under construction, so we didn't get to see
Really?
those
Ah,
in the last year. But I saw them as a kid, so I knew they were there. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
man.
Spaceship One is there as
Yep,
well.
I saw that. That was a new addition from when I was a kid because it didn't exist back then.
Yep. Yeah, I can remember actually. So that flight where they did their first official like commercial space flight. I
Talking about
remember leaving
Virgin.
school early. Yeah, Virgin. Yeah, exactly. It's Richard Branson. I think it was in '04 maybe when they did that. I remember like leaving school early. I asked like the teacher to like leave school early to try to like go watch that like as it happened or whatever.
What
Yeah, I know.
self-respecting teacher wouldn't honor that request?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah. It was really cool, So yeah, that yeah, Spaceship One, it changed the game, opened up the door for commercial space flights. So
yeah, no, I still remember reading an article in the early 2000s. I think it was in like Popular Mechanics or Popular Science about just different commercial space companies that were kind of rising up on the scene. And I mean, Virgin Galactic was definitely one of them. Another one was SpaceX. I mean, those are the ones that survived. I'm sure there were other ones that we've
yeah, Blue
forgotten about.
Origin.
Yeah, Blue Origin. Were they around back then, or did they? I feel like
Um,
they came on the scene a little later, but maybe I'm
yeah,
wrong.
I think they did. I'm not entirely sure of their like when they were founded, but they've been obviously I think New Glenn right now is they're working on that and they're trying to get that in the air. So um, they're making good progress.
Oh, for sure. I
But
mean, they're incredible what they're up to.
yeah. So, but yeah, hopefully, what would be cool to, one day fly, as a commercial astronaut, maybe in
Yeah, well, and
space.
it's crazy to think too that like the amount of logistics and just like the fact that you have to throw the whole rocket away, when we went to the moon in the '60s, and just like, you had like I don't know how many people it took to run one of those missions, but I'm sure it's very expensive, and getting the cost of that down. I mean, even to where it's at today, which is, I mean, we got a long way to go, I think, but
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible to see that kind of at least moving in that direction.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of remarkable how much Elon has cut the cost of operating these spacecraft down. It's pretty remarkable. And I think it's just the beginning. We're still very, very early on in terms of like space technology. So who knows? I mean, people talk about things like asteroid mining and whatnot. So maybe, in 10, 20 to 20 years, maybe you might see startups starting to actually venture out into that space and hopefully try to capture some asteroids and bring them back or something like that.
Yeah,
Or
for sure. I mean, it's just the fact that it's so expensive still to launch something into orbit and bring it back. I mean, but like you said, Elon's been doing great work getting that cost down. I mean, when I was an intern at SpaceX in 2013, I don't know if I'm supposed to say the price, but it was a lot less than it used to be.
yeah, of course, of
So yeah,
course.
I think we're still driving that down.
Yeah, no, that's
Uh,
incredible. It's pretty amazing. That's cool. That's cool that you're at SpaceX. So you do have some aerospace
I
experience
was
then.
in IT systems at SpaceX as an intern.
Yeah,
I was
that's cool.
schlepping servers into data centers, but
Yeah, well,
but
that's
I got to be
awesome
near
though.
it all, which was neat. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
cool to be around it.
that was in Hawthorne, I assume,
That
or
was in Hawthorne, yeah. So
cool.
that's
That's awesome.
how I know what the Santa Monica Pier looks like, as I lived out
Yeah,
there for
that's
the time in
cool.
between undergrad and when I went to grad school, like 4 months later.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's cool that you got the chance to do that. I mean, I know it's a pretty, it's very high performance work culture there, and I mean, they've done some amazing, work. So it's hard to argue with their results. It's cool that you got the chance to experience that.
yeah, for sure. No, I'm glad I did it. I don't know if I would do it again at this point in my career, but I'm certainly glad to have gotten it under my belt, and really just some of the smartest people I've ever met, and
Yeah.
just an incredible team to have had the pleasure of working with in some capacity.
Yeah. Honestly, that's how I feel like at Archer too. Like, gosh, we have so many smart people. It is unbelievable, actually. It's like, for me going from like a grad school program to like, now starting to work with the best and brightest, it was pretty amazing actually. So Like I remember seeing some of the folks that we're working with now, like our chief engineer Jeff Bauer, and we're like watching like YouTube videos about him and whatnot. So it's just like it's really cool to now be working with him to to do this. It's been it's pretty amazing actually. So it's
Yeah.
cool to be working with the best in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even like being IT at SpaceX, like there was this store I used to buy robot parts from called robotshop.com. Like, save up allowance for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then get a couple of motors, and like, maybe like a basic stamp in those days, or
Yep.
whatever, and build something. I remember one of the projects that I did was I built a lighting system for the data center in Hawthorne. So
Oh,
it was
nice.
it was like LED strips and
Yeah.
DXM 512, like basically like concert lights for the addressable controls, and you could change the colors of different rows and aisles in the data center. And I mean, for budgetary reasons, I think we limited the number of channels, but like that was my project. So I got to design it. I got to coordinate people. We built parts of it in the avionics harnessing area. I got like a soldering lesson from like one of the guys that was training all the people to solder the for like the Falcons. So that was neat. I used to do butt joints, and after that I learned to overlap so you'd have more structural support
That's
from
awesome.
the copper as well as the lead, which doesn't really get you very far once you start hitting cyclic loads, which didn't matter in what I was
Yeah.
doing, but it was good to still build it right. For the
Yeah,
second
of
half of
course.
it, I made the error in the first half. But
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean that's
It's a
what the
great learning
internships are all
experience,
about. Yeah, is
Yeah,
just getting
exactly.
better. I learned a lot about project management through doing that, and just power budgeting and all that stuff.
Of course.
But one of the guys that I coordinated with on it was, I can't remember his name I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed that I've forgotten it. But I just was like, his job at SpaceX was, quote, making the building look good. And I was like, well, how'd you get that job? And I kind of asked him, like, just try to get to know the guy. He's like, I used to have this store called Robot Shop, and then I sold it. And now I'm like, can I give you a hug? The guy just looked really uncomfortable, and I hugged him.
Robot shop. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, I was where I'd bought all that crap as a kid. So it's like,
Yeah, I love that.
I gave the guy a heartfelt hug, and he looked super uncomfortable. And then I just kind of kept going about my day. But it was neat to like meet, like someone
Of
who
course.
worked on something, that touched me in that way. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
No, that is really cool. It's funny. You realize the world is a lot smaller than you think it is actually when you get the chance to meet people like that. So it's just like the connections that you have is just like, yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's interesting to think about like even the work that you're doing, like you just never know how it's gonna impact people's lives. Like this guy's just running his business, whatever, it's just he never knows, what that means for a lot of other people too. So it's really cool.
Absolutely. Likewise. I mean, it's definitely a small world, smaller industries.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
cool. Yeah. So did you ever see any rocket launches when you're out there at SpaceX or
no. So
Virgin?
I was actually really sad. I love a good party, and I was super excited to get to experience the SpaceX launch party. I heard a lot of stories about just kind of the level of celebration that occurred at those. I mean, there were
Or
strategically placed just fridges full of champagne like around the office, and I think anticipating launch parties, but this would have been in 2013, and in those days there actually wasn't a launch that summer, so I didn't get to experience that part. But
gotcha.
that's all good. I mean,
Yeah, of
like,
course.
I mean, there's so many of them now. It seems like there's
I
one like
know.
every week or so. So happy to.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely how it was when we at Archer as well. Like when we first started flying, it was like, oh, this is great. And then like I think last year, I don't know, I forget the exact number. We flew like a few hundred times or whatever. Like I don't know, I think 500 times maybe. I don't
Now,
exactly
are those
remember.
like flights with a person on board?
No, right now, they're not. So we're testing everything out before putting a pilot on board. But our first piloted flight should be happening pretty soon. So it's definitely
Awesome.
in progress, and yeah, hopefully keep your eyes peeled.
No,
So
nobody's cheated and flown it anyway.
yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah, I want to keep everyone safe.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair.
but yeah, it's
we're
it's definitely
we're working on one thing right now for a new startup that I've got, and I shouldn't say what it is because it's not been announced yet. But It's a thing that a person can ride on, and we're talking about it. We're like, we definitely have to do this with a crash test dummy. And I said to my co-founder, I was like, how long is it going to be before one of us just jumps in that seat?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure, like after like a dozen, like unpiloted operations that don't have any failures, 24, 100, 200, at a certain point, I feel like, I don't know. Maybe I'm
no, it's really interesting. One
underestimating the restraint of other people.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. So like in obviously a lot of these companies kind of history, just like, a lot of the engineers that we built, like, Ford drove his quadricycle around, and others just like, you build what you're doing and then you go fly it, right? And that's something that doesn't really exist too much in the modern era, I feel like, but it's always something really cool to be able to do. If you get the chance to be able to build that and then ride it, I mean, that's like so cool, so hey. Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. It's a dangerous thing, so I don't know if I'll do it yet, but
of course.
Depends kind of what engineering decisions we make, I think.
But, yeah, of course. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's compromises I don't want to make. That if we make them, I don't think I would put myself on it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, right, like if you don't trust your own creation, then how are you supposed to expect other people to?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think, hey, this guy gotta build it and gotta experiment and see where.
But on the other hand,
exactly.
Think about the Soviet space program where they had all
right?
those scientists under the launch pad, and then the rocket exploded.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
that was crazy.
I don't know. I could see both sides of that argument.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely unfortunately, a lot of accidents of what they were doing. Moving fast and break things, I guess, kind of works. But
we did it too. We just didn't have people on the launch pad.
Exactly. But SpaceX too. I mean, SpaceX had a lot of failed launches as well, especially early on. The Falcon 1, I think it was, right? The first one, they were launching out of the Indian Ocean.
That was the single engine with quadrilene, I think was the name of it.
Yeah. And then, like the first 3 or 4 blew up. And then the last one launched, I think, with when SpaceX didn't really have much money. This is it. You got to get this off the ground. And it worked. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed a guy, John Seminatore, on the podcast who was like an Air Force project manager on that program.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Yeah, I can only imagine the stress of during that time to try to get everything off the ground.
Especially on the SpaceX side.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. So talk about pressure to get stuff off the ground. When we were in grad school, and this is obviously super low stakes to us at early age of Archer, but it was obviously a big deal to, just kind of got to get this thing because we didn't have a lot of money, Our first aircraft, we were having issues trying to get it off the ground. We eventually figured out the problem, but I remember it was so stressful. I remember just pounding hamburgers, because they're easy to get.
Of course.
A lot of us early guys, we gained a bunch of weight, and our first company swag I think we got besides our t-shirts was so Brett and Adam flew down and they gave us a gym bag. They're like, all right, you guys need to go to the gym. So, I was like, oh man,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, but it was great. So it was gotta stay healthy, So
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one thing where, it's definitely easy to put weight on when you let yourself. I mean, eating feels good, and food is a great escape.
It is. It definitely is. Especially with some hamburgers, man. I freaking was pounding those things. It was amazing. So,
oh yeah, for sure. What's your favorite hamburger chain? Out of any of them?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say
I'm not talking gourmet. I'm talking something that there's at least 5 of.
Oh, well, definitely. I mean, I think Burger King is really solid. The king of burgers, in my opinion. They make their Whopper is huge, But in terms of fast food, I personally I love Chick-fil-A and I love Taco Bell.
Chick-fil-A is amazing. It's so good. It's
incredible. And Taco Bell is incredible. So back in college, I used to pride myself as being a Taco Bell hacker. So this
Is that when you
back
put multiple menu items together to make stuff that's not on the menu?
exactly.
Love it.
So a fun secret about Taco Bell is like pretty much their entire menu is like the same thing. They just like recycle over and over again, like different combinations of it. So like stuff that doesn't exist on their menu anymore, you can definitely get it back. This was back before they even had an app. So I used to go in through the window and you're like, I mean, you could get like anything. I was like doing obviously Crunch Wraps, the cheesy gordita crunches. You can do a triple decker like Crunch Wrap. It all depends
Just
on
combining
like how
3 single decker Crunch Wraps.
exactly. It all depends on like whether or not they're willing to work with you. But you'd be surprised, how the people are doing that. But my pride and joy for like hacking a food menu was back before Chick-fil-A. Now they do the spicy grilled as well, but I was able to do a spicy grilled chicken biscuit actually, which is really interesting. They were able to like honor that request. So interesting story about the Chick-fil-A. So their grilled chicken sandwiches or the grilled chicken breasts. Before they had a spicy grilled breast. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Awesome. But yeah, they used to put that on their salad. The Southwest grilled chicken salad, they take the patty on there and you can heat that patty up, and they cut it up obviously, but you can take the whole patty and you heat that up and you put that in a biscuit, and there you go. You got your grilled spicy chicken biscuit.
That sounds awesome. I might get one of those later.
Yeah, you got to convince them though. That's the thing. It only happened once. It only happened once.
Every kid, get out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Go home.
Exactly. We can't do that. But I do enjoy menu hacking. It's a lot of fun.
That's cool.
I've done that with ChatGPT as well. It has produced many a monstrosity, but
people will honor these requests and be like, yeah, sure, I'll make that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Testing the novelty aspect of these AI models. So
one thing we don't get in Pittsburgh is In-N-Out Burger, so that's one of my favorites. Like I didn't go for it last time I was in California, but I had this one coworker and we were at a trade show together. He's like, Spence, I gotta go to an In-N-Out Burger. I'm like, dude, I'm not stopping you.
Of course.
Eat there every night if you want,
Yeah, I got 4x4, 4 slices, 4 patties, 4 slices of cheese. It's pretty hardcore, but
you can do that at In-N-Out Burger.
Oh yeah, you get a 4x4, get a 2x2, whatever you want. Yeah, but
that sounds horrible for you, but also very good.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, YOLO. YOLO, right?
Going
YOLO
back to like the gourmet side, though. I mean, the gourmet burger was like a thing. Like I want to say like 10 years ago. Like I feel like there's a big uptick. At least where I'm out, there were a bunch of like just high end burger places that were serving like you get like a medium rare or whatever, and
the Wagyu.
Yeah, the Wagyu burgers. Yeah, those were hot at that point. And I would say if you eat one of those, that's basically 4 patties at In-N-Out, like smashed together and just cook less in the middle. It's the same amount of calories. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, whatever. And then of course there's the great chicken sandwich wars of the late 2010s, or I think 2018, 2019, and now chicken sandwiches are like everywhere. I feel like So Dave's Hot Chicken is really popular. It's expanding, and of course, every chain has their own chicken sandwich now. So
it used to be you'd have to like fly to Nashville to get to experience that.
Oh, I know, but it's like incredible. Have you had it, by the way, Dave's Hot Chicken?
I've not had Dave's Hot Chicken, but like every time I go to Nashville, I'm just like eating more fried chicken than I should.
It's incredible. I mean, it's taken the world by storm. So
I have to Google that because I actually haven't heard of it yet. So I'm going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, they were originally in California, but now they're expanding everywhere, it seems like. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, if you're here in Gainesville, maybe you can go to Dave's Hot Chicken.
I'm not against it. I'll be there in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's pretty good. So
actually less than a week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what are some of the trends? I'm just really curious. So like, what do you see in robotics right now that's like, something to keep an eye on, and like, where do you think this industry is kind of going? We've got, obviously this past week with CES, NVIDIA is doing a lot of really great stuff with their world simulations, Omni and whatnot. So like, where do you see, like, what are some of the trends that you're keeping an eye on right now?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm a bit of a curmudgeon in this way. Like I usually, when people ask me that question, I say, if I know one thing, it's that I don't know the future. Yeah. But I mean, like and I'll evidence that by like in the Jetsons, right? I mean, we had flying cars, and this was in the 60s, like people
Mm-hmm.
thought it was going to be a lot different than it ended up. Not that we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to have flying cars, but you know what
Yeah,
I
of
mean? Like
course.
it,
Yeah, of
it
course.
looked very different than what you're working on now. And, I would also say that, I mean, we've been wrong more than we've been right, put it that way. And so I'm a
Yep.
person, I'm probably not going to know, but, I've been really impressed with some of the stuff we're seeing in AI recently. I mean, like that was one where I was pretty bearish on it to start, and then I've kind of come
Mm.
around and, kind of drank the Kool-Aid a bit, where I think that that's one where, just some of the algorithms that are coming out of that are pretty incredible. And, I think you're seeing a lot move in that direction with respect to, how robots are programmed and figure out the world. And I don't know that we're there yet, like completely, but I mean, we use it at work. So, like, I mean, there was a perception engineering job I worked on, I think it was like 2 years ago, and we were able to clean up, outlying points in a point cloud just by using, not just by, but we used AI-based algorithms for that. And so, I mean, there's definitely times when it makes, perfect sense. And I mean, the one that we're all experienced with, you've referenced, like half a dozen times on this podcast, which is
Yep.
ChatGPT. I
Yep.
mean, that's pretty incredible too. I don't know, like if the product is going to live up to the hype or not, because we've hyped it quite a bit because everybody's seeing how awesome it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's definitely an innovation, and I would say has changed the world a lot and will continue to do so. Um, I think by-arm manipulation is kind of interesting to me. So as the
Mm-hmm.
algorithms get better and better, like the kind of stuff you're seeing from physical intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
with respect to being able to make an omelet based
Mm-hmm.
on I guess that there's like a video from Project Aloha which led into that, I believe. But taking these crappy robot arms and like doing complex by arm tasks with them. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's you wouldn't be able to do that without some of the modern algorithms, and I mean that's the real innovation there. Um, yeah, I don't know. You mentioned one that I think is pretty big, which is battery technology getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a guest on the podcast a couple of episodes ago where we went on and talked about nuclear batteries, which I thought was kind of interesting. So
That is interesting.
yeah, I think the idea is like alpha voltaic and gamma voltaic cells. So
Mm-hmm.
you can have radiation. And I'm gonna butcher this because I'm not a nuclear engineer, but you can have like a radiation source in the center, and then it's something like an inside out solar panel that goes off on. And I mean, in theory, I think you can get orders of magnitude more power out of that than you can out of a lithium ion battery. And I don't think the surge power is as great. So I think we're still figuring it out, but like the life that you get out of it's pretty great. And like, I mean, a conventional nuclear reactor, like I don't think you can get that small. So like, I mean, there's a project we were looking at like 6 years ago where the theoretical minimum on a conventional nuclear reactor, I think, was like at the time, one of my engineers I worked with was telling me it was like 6 or 7 kilograms. But I don't
Hmm.
know if that's still the case or not, right? Again, not a nuclear engineer, but
Yeah.
some of the stuff I think we're seeing there is pretty incredible. I don't know. Now that I'm running my mouth on stuff that's probably not going to come true, what do you think is the next big thing?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I do think that reinforcement learning, AI, all these things that's going to change the world. It remains to be seen how that impacts like vehicle autonomy, really on our end, or like they're like for example Tesla, on they're going fully, I mean, I don't know the in and outs, the details of their autonomy architecture or autonomy stack, but from what I understand from being on the outside, and what I see is, I believe they're just essentially building, these models to, they're looking at millions or hundreds of hours or whatever of like road data, and then trying to figure out how to drive, which I think is a really interesting way of approaching the problem. So I would like to see kind of how all these things, kind of bear out. I think RL has, a lot of really interesting applications. I think we're just kind of scratching the surface on. One thing that really kind of took me off guard, actually, really was surprising to me, was OpenAI's O3 model, with their breaking the ARC AGI benchmark that happened, I don't know, a few months, like a month ago or something like that, where they're able to like solve these like really interesting puzzles, that it was one step towards AGI, essentially, as they call it, right? So I think when you have these models that can understand things, now of course they're based on text or based on like thoughts or whatever, or thought processes in the case of the O series model, like chain of thought. If you can kind of apply those algorithms and put a ton of compute into it, it makes me wonder like what more can they unlock. So I think that should be really interesting to see how that industry kind of plays out in the not just in the world of software, but in the world of physical atoms. With like robots as well. And of course, I don't know what that looks like for in the aerospace industry. We're definitely, we are not going to be like we're going to be flying with pilots we're going to be flying with pilots on board our aircraft and whatnot. But, it would be interesting to see what autonomy would look like eventually in our industry as well. Some of our competitors, like Joby, for example, they recently acquired this company called X-Wing. And X-Wing they built an autonomous prop airplane, and they're going to try to figure out like what autonomy looks like in the eVTOL space. And I definitely feel like it's one of those things that we will figure that out at some point, but what that looks like is unknown. And I think there's a lot of changes in this industry right now that we'll have to see kind of where things shake out, and it makes me excited about the future of like robotics, I guess.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
recent advances.
It is a robot.
Yeah, it is, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Do you know when the first? I mean, this is probably a bad place to take this to, since it seems like we're wrapping up really nicely, but I'll do it anyway. Do you know when autopilot first came on the scene? Because I mean that.
Yeah, I think it was a long time. It was like, oh gosh, is it maybe the 20s? I think.
Wow. Okay.
It was a long time ago. It was a Sperry autopilot. I think it was like, it's very simple. It was like a basic wing leveler. So it was just like you turn it on and your plane just flew in a straight line. I believe I don't I may be wrong about this, but I believe Charles Lindbergh had that simple autopilot on his Spirit of St. Louis.
That's awesome.
So, of course you add more and more stuff when you get your modern autopilots now. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, again, like where does it become a robot,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's interesting. So we'll have to see kind of where things go. I think it'll be really interesting. I think that for us to see eVTOL and all these technologies change the world, I think we're gonna have to make them autonomous at some point. And that's something that we're gonna have to figure out, but I think that's going to be huge once the dream is that that you can hail one of these air taxis, they'll land near you, or there'll be enough like landing spots, vertiports as we call them, so that you can no longer have to drive your car for distances, take you across town or whatever. So but yeah, that's at some point maybe in the future we'll do that. So
I mean, that sounds great, right? Especially as streets get more and more congested. I mean, I can only imagine having something like that in a city like Los Angeles, where it takes like 40 minutes to drive like half a mile during lunchtime.
Yeah, of course. But it's definitely not, it's definitely one of these things right now. We're being very deliberate in how we place our vertiports. And of course, we're going to have pilots on board, certified, powered lift commercial pilots. And it's going to be really interesting to see kind of the mix of regulation, how that influences our industry as well. Obviously, aviation is the safest form of transportation, like period, right? Like there's not even anything close. So we've got to be able to maintain those high levels of safety and high levels of community acceptance. So we're taking a pretty measured approach to like how we approach a lot of that stuff. So I think that's smart. But I'd love to see, maybe it's hard to predict the future, as you were saying, But
yeah, I don't know. Like everything I said that was going to happen, like I don't actually know that's going to happen. Like it's just like a hunch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
now I get to answer that question on interviews a decent amount, and I like that you flipped it on me in my own podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. But
cool.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to. So
awesome. Well, that seems like a good note to end on. Is there anything you want to plug as we kind of head out the door here?
No, I mean, I think, I really appreciate you having me on. It's been great getting to be on the podcast, getting to know you a little bit, Spencer. And, I'm excited to see what the future holds. And, Yeah, in the words of I think it's Doc Brown from Back to the Future, right? Where we're going, we don't need roads. So let's hope that we'll hopefully make that dream become a reality. So
awesome. Well, hey Moses, thanks for coming on. This was an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate it. And where we're going, we don't need roads.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us today. If you've made it this far, chances are you'll like other episodes too. Collaborative with Spencer Krause is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. Subscribe today to get notified when the latest episodes release and support the channel. Collaborative with Spencer Krause is sponsored by SKA Robotics. If you're in the market for elite field robotics expertise, please consider hiring SKA Robotics. They sponsor this podcast and solve some of the toughest engineering problems in the world. SKA Robotics can be found at skarobotics.com. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.